Hi everyone, Ernie Tech here. I want to talk about something I think near and dear to our mainframe-loving hearts, and that is mainframes in the movies. And I did a previous video on Colossus the Forbidden Project where I got into all sorts of woods and weeds about AI. And it always seems to be the place we go to because, well, naturally that's where we go to. This is a movie set back in 1957. It stars Spencer Tracy and Katherine Hepburn, the it couple at the time with good reason. And it has to do with the introduction of, let's just say, early automation into the corporate environment back after World War II. And it's actually supposed to be NBC, I guess. And it's a broadcasting company, Federated Broadcasting, something like that. They're in Rockefeller Tower Plaza. And they're going to introduce what looks like an early IBM system. Obviously, when you see it, you'll realize it was completely made up, but IBM actually did provide some of the components for this, and you'll recognize them. And the reason why I think this is a really interesting movie is because, to me, it is the beginning of, it's the beginning of anthropomorphism. It's the beginning of assigning human traits to computers and then deciding whether they're friendly or nasty or the root of or all evil or whatever the case may be. I think this is the root. This is the beginning of that tendency for Hollywood to do that with computers. Anyway, let's take a look. I got some interesting observations, some neat clips, and it's a movie you might want to check out. Anyway, here's the story. 1957, an MIT-educated computer expert is brought into a major corporation to install a labor-hour reducing computer in preparation for a corporate merger. Hilarity ensues. Well, here's the funny thing about this movie. It doesn't know if it wants to be a serious movie or it wants to be a spoof. And it winds up in the end being quite a spoof, quite a mockery. I didn't think that was the best approach to making this movie. That you start out serious, three-quarters of the way through the movie, you've got a love affair going on, you got tension, you got all sorts of the usual things. And then they just start throwing it into sort of like utter chaos, almost cartoonish. So wasn't too sure about that. But anyway, a couple of themes here. One of the themes is that you are seeing a villainization, in a sense, of some of the characterizations. For instance, Spencer Tracy's character is an MIT-educated computer expert. He has a PhD. He's invented all sorts of stuff. He is methodical. He is cold. He is only interested in results, and he is acting at the behest of the president of the company, who once, for some unknown reason, he was very interested in getting these computer systems installed to make things more efficient. And it has to do with a department that does research the old-fashioned way, full of file cabinets and like a little library full of very well-intentioned young women run by a very matriarchal boss, Katherine Hepburn. And then they're faced with this great change, this sea change in their little world, and they're not happy about it. All right, so where am I going with this? And it has to do with this general concept. So anthropomorphism, I'll let you read that. I'm not going to read that to you. But the bottom line is that we tend to want to have a face on everything. And through all the years of science fiction movies and what have you, we keep putting human faces, not necessarily faces, real faces, but human traits, making a human out of a computer. And we've done this with what? With Colossus, HAL 9000, for Whopper. All these things, we just can't seem to get past the idea that it is a machine. It is a adding machine. It is a binary super duper adding machine. And it's not a real person, but there's no story here, I guess, if there isn't. Anyhow, so here's where it starts. Here you have this computer systems. Granted, there's no rhyme or reason or logic to this set here. You have a couple of tape drives, I don't know, 2401s, whatever they are. You got typewriters, you got printers, you have a bin for the paper that looks like it goes right in the trash can, and then you have this board of lights. It almost reminds you of the Sea View from Voyage at the Bottom of the Sea. No logic at all, but they're all staring at it intently because, hey, it's mesmerizing, right? Well, this set right here must have been amazing to watch being built. And you can tell by the furniture, what period it was from. But where that computer is sitting, that once had desks, and these ladies sat at the desk, they answered calls. People would say, what kind of car did FDR drive? I don't think he drove a car, but anyway, they knew it. They even knew it from heart. They go upstairs to the library. Well, now, with the purpose of this computer, an EMERAC, Electromagnetic Memory and Research Arithmetical Calculator, anthropomorphized into the name Emmy, was going to be fed all the knowledge in that room, all the knowledge from those books, how they did it with punch cards, of course. And all you had to do was type in the question, and Emmy would give you the answer instead of you either knowing it or saying, I'll call you back in 45 minutes while I go look that up. So this thing was called Emmy. Let me just tell you something interesting. I had a very I had an uncle who I really admired. He was a great guy. He lived out in Merced, California. I'm on the East Coast. He was on the West Coast. He has since passed away. But he had this habit of giving affectionate feminine names to just about everything in the house or in his purview. And we went out to visit one year, and he had a brand new Ford truck. This is about early 90s. And on the front of the truck, it had 3 letters, and it was EFI. It was a Ford F-150 EFI, which stood for electronic fuel injection. But he, of course, affectionately named the truck Effie, and everybody called it Effie. They didn't care what it meant. It was Effie. Anything in the house, from the washing machine, anything, if he could find a label or something that he could slap on that thing, it became a feminine named item. Anthropomorphism gone wild. We all thought it was great, but yeah, that was his thing. Well, anyway, it's apparently it's a thing, obviously. All right. The bottom line, the wrap up, if you want to see the movie, don't watch this, because then I'm giving it away. Boo me. But yeah, anyway, if you don't want to watch the movie, it's not going to hurt if you kind of know what's going to happen here. Well, Effie is installed, everybody's happy. They don't need to go to the library or fact check by calling around or anything. They just go to Effie. So if there were 5 ladies working, 4 of them got a pink slip. And then, of course, they were out the door, casualties of automation in the early days of the computer revolution, or so you would think, right? But it's not to be. And they had a sister computer. Apparently, they put one of these things just about everywhere in Rockefeller Plaza. It's a riot. Well, here's what happened, and take a look at this. I grabbed a clip, so.
All right, sure. Right away.
What?
EMERAC. Down on payroll. Mistake.
What mistake?
It fired everybody in the building.
Some mistake.
You mean we're not really fired, Mr.
No, nobody's fired.
Oh, boy, was that a close
Hey, wait a
shave.
minute. If we're not fired, what's going to happen when EMERAC takes over?
Yes, what?
EMERAC is not going to take over. It was never intended to take over. It was never intended to replace you. It's here merely to free your time for research. It's just here to help you.
Well, why didn't you say so?
Because of your darn grapevine, that's why. They didn't want that Atlantic stock to go up while the merger was going. There's going to be more work here than ever before. As a matter of fact, they're putting on a few more girls. I just hope they're as good as all you are.
Morrow, never assume.
We'll put your stuff back.
Well, a couple of things going on there. Number one is that it's a product of the late 50s, so the sexism was, it was very evident. Nobody was there that wasn't in a role that apparently they were supposed to be in, if you get my drift. But you also notice that they misunderstood Emmy. They misunderstood the whole point. And the reason they misunderstood it was a patriarchal society. The character portrayed by Spencer Tracey really didn't see a need to explain himself. He was there for a purpose, and the ladies in that department were to be compliant and go along with it. He didn't have to explain himself. And then when things went pear-shaped, as they say, he was sort of surprised by their misinterpretation. Doesn't this sound familiar? That we have so many things that enter into our existence, so many kinds of AI nowadays that we don't understand them, and we're more or less told, hey, this is here to help you. It is here to help you. It is to make you more efficient. To wait a minute, my favorite one, to free you up for other things. Well, this is nothing new, my friends. This started a long time ago, and here's the death set from 1957. The other thing, of course, is that it made an epic mistake, and it put out a pink slip for everyone in the organization. Well, if you flash forward to 1968, didn't HAL 9000 sort of make an epic mistake, but instead of firing everybody, he just killed everybody? These are the same tropes that seem to be repeated over and over and over in the movies. I'm going to try to do other videos on perhaps where this doesn't happen, but it just seems to be such a common thing. Anyway, moving on.
All right, sure,
Up,
sure.
up,
Right
up,
away.
up, up, up.
What?
Let me turn this off. Use the right button. Thank you. All right. So anyhow, it's late 50s. The other thing is that Emmy, the computer, is supposed to be fed volumes and volumes of information. And it was hilariously fed by the ladies that it was going to eventually fire mistakenly. And then it was supposed to regurgitate this stuff. It was supposed to be able to figure out all the context and then answer a question based on that context. Now, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, how was that done in 1957? Well, I went through this big gyration about Colossus and how it couldn't be done and how the technology could. I won't go into that. I kind of did already. But the bottom line is that there's always been this sense that a computer, as mystifying as it is to pretty much everyone, has to be given human traits. And one of the human traits is, of course, it has to be able to evaluate the situation in front of it, reach into its data, its mind, and then from its experience and from that information make a informed decision. What do we do now? So the bottom line is that nothing has really changed over time. This is nothing that's relatively unknown. It's just that it happened a long, long time ago, and this is pretty much the predecessor movie to all these things. The other thing is that if you watch the exchange between the two main characters, there's this sense that perhaps it could be loved. Now, that's exactly the same thing that was a thread in Colossus the Forbidden Project, that Colossus would not just be in awe. I mean, people would be in awe of Colossus, but they would love Colossus. Well, the same thing here. Katherine Hepburn makes the statement to Spencer Tracey, well, you're going to love Emmy and not me. And he says, oh, that's not true. Come on, that's crazy. Where does this stuff come from? Well, it comes from the natural human inclination to anthropomorphize everything, to try to find an attachment point, a penetration point, a way in which to identify with something, a way in which a human is able to connect to it in a human fashion. So let's have a look at this. Hang on one second here. I've got to switch the...
Should Bunny, Watson, Barry, Mike, Cutler. Question mark.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought you said this machine can't evaluate.
Can't. Can only repeat the information that has been fed into it by the human elements. What does it say?
You know perfectly well what it says.
Ah. Yeah, that's the same answer I got the last time. Shall we ask it another question? Good. Should Bunny, Watson, Barry, Richard, Sumner? Question mark.
N-O.
No?
See for yourself. No.
Well, well, I told you myself that EMERAC could make a mistake.
Yeah, but not Bunny Watson. It would never work.
Why?
Oh, because you're not in love with me, you're in love with her. She'd always come first. If anything went wrong with her, you'd forget about me like that.
Why, you don't know. Oh, I couldn't care less about that. It could blow up right now and it wouldn't bother me.
Is that so? Let's see.
See? Doesn't mean a thing to me. You're the only thing I care about. Honestly, it'll only take a second.
I'll wait.
Well, anyway, that's what happened to Emmy. But Emmy didn't fail. Emmy had this this interesting situation where if things went haywire, you could find 2 points on a circuit board on the side, and you could short them with a hairpin, and then next thing, Emmy is just fine. That's where it got a little slapstick, a little silly. And again, I'm not sure if they understood that this movie started out almost serious and then took a very silly turn towards the end, at the expense of the computer, of course, because remember, the computer is not human, even though they have created the human aura. It is sacrificial, of course. And you notice how Spencer Tracy kind of pulls his like a little Rodney Dangerfield bouncing around, like surprised at where he was resisting the agony of having Emmy sort of like short circuit. Very interesting. But he apparently made it clear to Audrey Hepburn that Emmy was secondary to their affections, and that will always, of course, be the case with human and computer relations. I don't think humans have a very good track record of interacting with technology where we don't try to put a hypothetical, theoretical, or if not literal, then virtual face on things. I think it's just our nature, unfortunately. All right, let's hold on. I always do that. All righty. That's kind of what it looks like, right? I mean, that really is the bottom line. We have this natural inclination to demystify machines by putting a face on it, and yet through that whole process, we tend to have the opposite effect. Then it becomes much more. It almost becomes a synergistic thing. It becomes greater than the sum of its parts because of a flaw, or maybe not a flaw, but an element of human nature. So in 1957, the death set take the computer, anthropomorphize it into something that is almost competitive in the affections, or in Spencer Tracy's character's affections, create the feared villain, let it make a mistake where it basically confirms its villainy by firing everybody, and then going through the process of redeeming itself. And at the end of the movie, everybody loves it, and it does a great job of helping everybody become more than they could ever possibly be. Sound familiar? So there it is. To err is human, to forgive divine, and mistakes are a natural part of being human. But of course, humans gave Emmy life, yet rather than blame themselves, they sort of blamed her. They said, well, you made a mistake, and, Emmy bad, but not Emmy fault, because humans created the error. Sound familiar? Yeah, I think I would repeat that throughout about 15 different movies through time. Okay, I thought this would be a little fun side. Let me know what you think. Always good to mix things up, throw things out there for fun. All right, please subscribe. Thanks for all the great comments and help, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.